Hey everybody, what's going on? Hopefully everybody's good. I know it's been a while since I've been doing one of these. Schedules has been crazy, so I've got a little bit of time today. I'm going to bang through some of these. So I don't expect many people to be on. I don't expect these people to be on here live streaming with me. But if you do appear on this episode and you have questions about your swing or what I go over, let me know in the comments down below. What's up, Gregory? How we doing, Gregory? Glad you can join me. But let's get started. So we have on the screen here. Also, if you want to submit your swing, you can do so in the link. It should be down below. If not, it's on the main channel. It's a job form link. You just upload a couple of your videos face on down the line like this gentleman, Taylor, did. And just put your notes down. Let me know what you need to work on, and we'll go from there. This is just all cause and effect, too. It's more of education. Whether you take my advice or not, that's completely up to you. But let's take a look. Taylor, we got background, been playing since he was a kid, never competitively though. And he plays 2 to 3 times a week as a kid. Now he has no range of motion issues. He has 2 kids under 5 and works a desk job. So he is slowly losing range of motion, which is normal for all of us that do have desk jobs. Never had a lesson. I've watched a lot of YouTube golf, poor Zach, Milo, and Malaska. So no range of motion issues so far. He can get around the course all right. Shot 82 this Father's Day, 76 last Father's Day in the same course. Current miss is a low hook and also just a pull that goes straight. So we're going to look at when you see pull hooks and pulls, we got to look at the path and the club face relationship at impact and see if they counteract each other or support each other. Long term, just want a simple swing that creates nice compression and a predictable ball flights. Don't care about hitting at 300. Good. Current irons, okay, with got it. Current stats: 8 iron is my 160 club, and driver is going about 260. Okay, so on the screen here we got him. So when I'm looking at students, if they send me swings, I'm just looking at basically cause and effect. So it's great that you can give me your ball flight tendencies, because if you can give me ball flight tendencies, then at least I know where to start to look, and at least you know when to start to look at your golf swing. So if you've seen a couple of my videos lately, I've talked about the 3 things that you need to look for at impact. It's path, face angle, and your low point. And as long as you can get those 3 to be somewhat, repetitive, you've at least got a repetitive motion. Now, it might not produce, the ball flight you're looking for, but at least you got a ball flight that you can rely on. So, do we go through changes just to straighten out a hook? You have to look at how much does that hook or the pull destroy your scoring ability, and that's what it all comes down to. So let's take a look immediately at impact and see on the left side here. Let's zoom in a little bit too, so we can see a little bit better. Let's go down the line impact and see what's going on here. So what I'm looking for is basically how you retain your spine angle, and then also you're tilting around that angle. So we see that's a pretty big forward bend. He does a pretty good job of keeping the shoulders perpendicular. We do see a slight left shoulder raising up, which will also start to mess with your DNA plane lines, basically the DNA of the swing, how you set up. Maintains a posture pretty decent. We don't lose much in terms of the back brace line. We do see a little shaft humping here. So we do a pretty good job. We can see we come back down to impact. We lose some posture. Our hands do have to get over involved at impact. Why did they do that? Let's take a look on the right side now. We do have a strong grip. Now, with strong grips, we might have some issues with face angles at impact. Okay, I like that turn, though. The turn that I want you to look for at home is where you stop turning your shoulders. Are the arms at least favoring that turn, so they're not getting back over here or getting back over here where no man's land comes in. All of a sudden, that shaft is sticking way back behind you, and you've got to, reroute to get your hands back out in front somehow, and that comes disconnection issues. But you can time that, obviously. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but the less, the less things you give yourself to time, specifically when you have a family, 2 kids, and a desk job, it's a lot easier. So keep the relationship pretty good. We do see a little bit of this collapsing on the right side, which will then also tilt a little bit too much as you strike into the golf ball with an iron. So we see our tilt bottoming out. There's the golf ball. So our center point is ahead of the golf ball, which is good. But with that strong grip, you've got to really accentuate some tilting. So with his strong grip, we're looking for 2 things can happen. We can shift this center point well ahead of the golf ball and allow our hands to be in a position where they don't have to flip. But because we don't, another option would be to hold that that shaft angle plus our strong grips is we have to fall back to really accentuate that tilt. And that's not something you want to do with an iron. So with strong grips, you got to be really careful because we are getting into a territory of forward pressing relative to our shoulders. So if we take a look on the right side, there's that forward press related to your shoulder tilt. So we are forward pressing pretty significantly. So we have to, at some point, if you sequence correctly, left hip goes towards the target. Irons, you want the whole body to move slightly with that so you can get that low point ahead of the golf ball. But when your left hip transitions, you will, as a result, also increase your tilting. Now, when you do that, that's going to increase the center of your tilting even further out. Now you've got a strong grip and your hands are way ahead of the golf ball. It's going to be some issues for you. So to try and align those two together, we do see some overactive hands. And sometimes the overactive hands, all they're trying to do is get this shaft angle closer to the spine angle by firing a little too early. Now, when you have a strong grip and they fire too early, that's where the club face will close at impact. And all of a sudden, when you have a pull, your club face closed relative to your path is probably dead on, and you got that pull, or you've got the rope hook where the club face is always left of your plane, your path numbers. So that's basically what I can tell you about this cause and effect. How to solve this, you really have to look at, grip changes might be necessary. Some posture changes might be necessary. However, with a grip change, your whole swing right now is dependent on that grip. So you are going to have to address some things in your swing too, which is a little bit frustrating as well. Some things I can recommend to check if this is something that you fall victim to. Some checkpoints you can look at is everything's based around your setup. So we got the lower plane line, we got the upper plane line. We do have this forward bend, the spine angle bending forward. Now, the more you bend forward, the more you're putting pressure on your shoulders to tilt relative to that forward bend. So if you've got somebody that's in an extreme position, let's just, call that extreme, right? Our shoulders have to tilt relative to that forward bend. Now, can you imagine trying to tilt your left shoulder down that much? I mean, you're going to pop something in your back. So the more you bend forward, the more pressure you put on yourself to maintain that forward, that relationship between your tilting and your spine angle. And obviously, unless you are Gumby-like, you are going to come out of that posture. So we do see that initial takeaway comes out of the posture because the shoulders really can't hold that same retention as it should. And this leads to a chain. Now, all of a sudden, when your left shoulder is higher, it brings the arms lower. So we don't get to that secondary plane line as natural as we should do based on our setup because the left shoulder came up, which will now get the butt of the club closer to that lower plane line. So now we've got a pretty shallow entry point. So now all of a sudden your path will want to tend to the right. And now you might have a path issue. So, and then it comes down to how do you transition that? So we see the transition isn't necessarily dropping down. It's pulling the club more across. So he's probably trying to fight that and get his hands to raise up a little bit higher to counteract that shoulder loss at the start of the swing. So bottom line is everything is just built upon your setup. And if you don't set up according to your body's limitations, you're going to be fighting your body's limitations, and it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for you. So if this was my students, we definitely have that conversation of, look, hardly anybody I've ever taught really has the time, the money, and the patience to do a swing overhaul. It is a very, very long, tedious process that can take multiple years depending on how ingrained your motion is. If you've never taken lessons before, you're going to have plenty of ingrained motions that we have to deal with, and it really isn't worth your time, not necessarily. So this might just be just a setup change, and then let the swing adapt around that new setup change, but go through the expectations that your swing is your ball flight's going to be horrendous. You're going to hit it sideways. You're going to hit it two-sided misses, but the patience and, understanding about cause and effect can really help keep you in that process. It's a shorter process in rebuilding, but it's your natural way of rebuilding. But you definitely have to look at that grip. You definitely have to look at that amount of forward bend you have. Keep it all relative, and your centeredness. You can see you kind of fall towards your toes as you finish on the left side. You're not quite getting to that heel as best as you like, but it could be the Crocs you got on. So I hope that helps you. Let's see who is next. Now we got to do the moment of truth here, and hopefully the computer doesn't explode. So have some patience here. The good news is I don't have to create a docket every week. But the bad news is it just comes down to how my computer reacts. So next up, we got Simon. Let me pull up Simon's videos. Download. So in case you're wondering, I've never seen these videos. I just pop them open from when I go through them now. We got 1 and 2. Bingo. Let's see, can we get them up here? There they are. All right, let's see his notes. Let me play these for you. Let me zoom in so in case it's hard to see. Now, sometimes the videos do get a little like this where they skip around, but that's all we got to work with. So Simon, just want to say I really love your content. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I think this could possibly be an interesting video review for your subscribers due to the club head speed I can create. The video attached shows a stock 4-iron and the club head speed is 128. Play Mizuno MP18s. That sounds like a pretty severe high 4-iron. We'll take a look at why. Age 47, played since 15, shoulder surgeries on both shoulders. Okay, labrum repairs, worked on getting my swing more upright. Last year it had gotten very flat. I think my body is trying to protect itself, and the swing became a big rotation around my spine. Ball flight power fade, bad shot is a pull. So when you do have fades and pulls, you're looking at a path that's most likely steeper and more left. Swing inspirations being Jack Nicklaus, Scotty Scheffler, and Fred Couples. That's some good inspirations. Had 6 months of lessons at 15, and that's about it. Okay. All right, let's see. Is that the proof there? 128. Swing speed radar. Don't know how accurate that swing speed radar is, but let's slow this down and see. Where's that swing that he got to 128? And if you do send me videos, if you can try to avoid these longer videos, just do the right when you take that club back and then through impact. It makes it a lot easier. So let's take a look. 128 was the club head speed with this one. Okay. So just be careful with these cheaper supposedly ball flight trackers. Obviously the cheaper units, now, I don't care what the advertisement says, you're not going to get the exact measurements as a $10,000 TrackMan. It's just the way it is. Or else $10,000 TrackMan wouldn't exist. That'd all be $200. So if this was like a $200 to $400 piece of equipment, take this readout with a grain of salt. A lot of things can affect readouts like this more severely. If you do have an outside in path, you can jump. I've seen numbers jump 30, 40 miles an hour just because of the way the beam is set. If you come outside the in, you're compressing the beam. It's shorter path. It produces more club head speed. So mismeasurements can be, exaggerated quite significantly. So that 128, I hate to break the news here, is probably not 128. I would probably imagine it's high 80s, mid 90s. But let's take a look at your swing. Let's see what we can tell here. We know we have surgeries on both shoulders. Nice neutral grip, which is good. Ball position is fairly good. Tilting looks pretty good. So far, everything's looking good. Look at that shaft. For those of you at home, shaft is pretty close to the centerness of your circle and the shoulder tilting. So now we do have a good amount of forward press relative to your tilting. So we can see that angle there. Perfect. So now if we sequence correctly, we get the upper body to just move slightly with that because it's an iron. We will drop our right shoulder slightly, which will then increase our forward press naturally. So we're not stealing forward press. So far this face on looks pretty good in terms of setup. Now let's take a look as we scroll through. Another thing too is if you can send me videos, make sure they're not slow motion either, just regular speed. All right, let's take a look at this takeaway. Okay, so we get a little slide, hip slide, not much rotation. Now comes the rotation with the top. We get the bumping going on here. So bumping will also cause the opposite of the up. And we see our spine angle is swinging down. So this is kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of like a horror version of stack and tilt. And then we get let's see if we correct it though. Do we get the bump? We get the bump, but we don't get the bump back. So we're getting the slide over to get the weight distribution over, but we're leaning. Now, when you lean, you've got some issues because you didn't turn deep enough. So that's where the steepness comes in. And do we do a pretty good job of catching up? So we get the weight, we get the majority of the weight ahead of the golf ball, which is good. It might be a little bit too ahead of the golf ball. And with a steep path, that could create some issues, specifically down to impact with your face relationship to the path. But bam, look at that. So here's a good thing. There's a shoulder tilt. The hands are pretty close to that shoulder tilt relationship. So it's a pretty connected swing. I think it's just a lot of, upper body kind of falling wayside depending on where the lower body's moving. I'm not sure if it's limitations in your hamstrings or hip depth or something along the lines of the lower body. But in terms of your connection with the upper body, it's pretty good. I don't see a lot of hand manipulation, which is good. So I see this as a swing that you can time pretty well and get away with it much better than somebody that can't time it as well. But let's take a look at the right side and let's see the steepness here, because it does look pretty steep, and that will definitely get your club head speed gadget down there to misread it quite significantly. So just don't let that throw you off. All right. So yeah, we see that initial take up. Yep. So we see the arms kind of pulling up. So there's not a lot of initial turn with the body. It's more of a tilting. And when the tilting happens, the arms do travel much higher pretty quickly. We do see the club head opening up as a result. And we don't see the lower body moving. Now, I don't know if this is something you're searching for, like a feeling of tightness that you can now, use that tightness down towards impact. But just remember how, releasing tension, wherever it's stored, that's where it's going to release originally. So let's say I go ahead and restrict my hips completely. I'm not going to get deep enough in terms of going back unless I get my arms to manipulate down there. And B, I've got so much torque in my upper body that when my first move down, what's going to unwind first? It's not going to be the lower body. The upper body is going to want to get rid of that tension. So what am I accomplishing now? I'm accomplishing upper body rotation on the way down by reducing my hip turn on the way back. So you think it's going to do one thing, but it actually does the opposite. So we know you probably got a lot of stored up tension in the arms. We don't see the hip depth getting back there to bring those hands a little bit more down in that lower plane line. And then from here, because we've got that extra torque on the upper body is probably going to go first, and it does. So the upper body leans first and gets going left. And all of a sudden, we've got a path that's pretty steep. Now, I'm not saying you can't hit good golf balls with this. I'm sure you can. We all hit good golf balls from all over the place. It's just, how does it affect your misses? Now, if your misses are all over the place, that's an issue, because you can't play better golf when your misses are 40 yards in between each other. If you can narrow that down to 20 yards or 30 yards, at least keep it in the ballpark, you can at least play and have some sort of course management. But from this position here, there's not much you can do other than get the hands involved and time that. So I do see a lot of potential power that you're losing. But your good news is you do a pretty decent job of staying somewhat connected. So I think if this was me and you working together, one of the first things I'd test you on, because your setup looks decent. I mean, you can see your setup is probably, let's pull this up to here. The centeredness of your setup is slightly ahead of the centeredness of your spine and where your shaft meet. So maybe give you some more spacing. I don't know if it's the lack of spacing where you're fighting that centeredness that you can't turn because you might lose your balance. So maybe pull the feet back slightly so they at least match that centeredness to give you a little bit more real estate over here. And then from there, you can really just focus on, do you have hip limitations that you can't turn? Because it might just be as simple as you getting your first move to engage with the hips to turn more and get the shoulders to tilt relative to your spine. And that'll bring your hands a little bit closer to at least give you a little better path at impact. And that'll stop, these probably pretty big bananas when you do miss them, or the pulls, or even the rope hooks. When you got a path that far left, it all comes down to, can your hands just time it correctly? So if you have really good timing one day, man, yeah, you can hit the ball pretty well. You probably score pretty well, and you confuse yourself because you think, oh, well, I got it today, but how come I couldn't get it this morning or yesterday? It's such, Jekyll and Hyde going back and forth. So I hope that makes sense to you. Let me know, Simon, in the comments down below. Let me catch up here for a sec. Iggy, the line is to go. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Andrew, just submitted my swing, hoping you have time to review tonight. Andrew, thank you so much. I hate to burst your bubble here, but I've got, let me see how many I've got here on waiting. We have, let me delete this one. We have 26 submissions. So Andrew, I don't see yours come in yet, but if it's coming in, it'll be 27th. So I used to do these once a week. Scheduling got in the way. Academies got slammed. So it's been kind of slower on the summer schedules, but I had a little brief time tonight. I thought I'd bang out a couple of these, but we'll be getting back to more of a regular schedule where this will go 2 to 3 times a week, where I can do these more often and get you through a lot quicker, because some of these have been here for almost a month. So I apologize for all that. Next, we got Scott. So let me do this. Let me get rid of these. Hopefully the computer doesn't blow up. If it does, it's going to be a very short stream. All right. Let's open this. Hope everyone's day is doing good. Let's see. Image. There we go. 1, 2. All right, we got them. Let's drop those in here. There's 1. There's 2. Let's zoom in. All right, we'll hit play while we go over his notes. And even if you're not on this as a swing submission, just watch it. You know, you never know. You might pick up on some jewels. You might be seeing somebody that says, hey, that looks like kind of like what I do. Let me see what's going on. My miss with an iron and driver is usually a straight pull or sometimes a pull hook. I have been playing around 25 years or so. I have taken in-person lessons, but not for about 10 years. I do get lower back pain, especially if I tilt my shoulders very much. Okay, so when we have somebody that has lower back pain with shoulder tilting, we are probably going to expect some flatter shoulder tilt at impact on the way around. Now that should be a little flatter swing arc, and that becomes very timing oriented on the hands, but we'll take a look and see if that is the case or not. So let's take a look on the right side. Yeah, I do see some hands involved a little bit, but you know, if that's the case because of some shoulder issues, that's the case. Very strong grip. Hands open up pretty quickly. Left shoulder comes up. Not too bad though. Yeah, that's going to be challenging because now that club's going to find the lower plane, and then we have our hands coming through. All right. So you see that release there? It's more like the right hand's going under. And the right hand under is trying to create loft in the club. So we've got some loft issues, or we've had some loft issues, and we've learned to kind of just stay back and just flick to help the ball in the air. So you go down to impact. We're going to take a look at the low point. There is center of the chest straight down. Golf ball's right over it. Tilting is a little bit too much out in front. So your tilting's pretty decent, but you see the hands are behind it. So they have to get involved. Yep. Club head pass travels through hands. All right. Let's take a look at this side. And keep in mind, these are not going to be as detailed as my usual swing analysis. This is just pure cause and effect. Yeah, I see the shoulders there. Okay, so we do lose pretty big amount of shoulder tilting in relation to that spine. So I see what he's talking about. That's going to flatten you out. So you see that secondary plane line doesn't even get close to being met, but that's his secondary plane line. So you have to work with that. So because it's much closer to that primary plane line, he's able to get away with it. So he gets it in the slot here, but because there's just a little bit of disconnection between his original setup and his in-swing change in his setup, we're going to see that club head probably fall below that plane line right about there, and his hands are way out in front. So this might be a path that's moving pretty hard to the right. And then we also have that strong grip, which, you know, it's very hard to time. And that strong grip is actually trying to add loft at impact because we're throwing under. So I don't know if this might have been a through time, you couldn't get the ball up in the air, so we've had to kind of fall back and add loft as we strike it with that strong grip. So there's many things going on with this swing, and just like anything, I always ask students, it's like, okay, what are you trying to accomplish? And you've been playing for 25 years, haven't taken a lesson in about 10 years. You get lower back pain, and especially with the shoulders tilting. So we know physically we can't really do much unless you can get a new body or build around your issues. So, how much time are you willing to invest in some physical rehab to get you to be not so much in pain? But if you don't have the time or just don't really care to do it, I had plenty of people just say, I just don't want to do it. Then how realistic can we get this? Can we change some things to get you to have a weaker grip to promote that flattening out? Yeah, we can, but then that's going to affect your natural scooping to add loft at impact. And what good is that going to do you now? Now we've got a shoulder tilt and a grip that's matching that shoulder tilt, but now your release is thrown off. So now you're going to have to go through the growing pains of hitting horrible shots while you learn a new release. And this is just one of those things where, a reality check when students come in like this, it's like, hey, man, I don't think you have enough time, or I don't think you want to know how much time it's going to take and dedication for you to do this. And there's no magic pill. There's no magic swing tchotchke out there. There's no magic thought that can get you through this. I don't care how many times we work on something. If I can get this guy for a week, 8 hours a day, and just work on nothing but positions over and over again, and do thousands of reps, I guarantee you when I put that club back in his hand on the 8th day and have him swing, he'll look just like this. It might be a little bit of change, but that's how much effort it's going to take, specifically with somebody that's playing for 25 years and has just kind of grown into the swing. It's very hard. This type of player, you need to just make small, subtle changes to his starting position to alleviate that stuff. Mention some changes in the body that you can go through, but from there, it's short game. It's course management. It's choosing the right club. It's choosing the right shot. Play to your percentages, and that's all you got, really. So, hate to burst your bubble, but I can't sit there and promise stuff I don't think is possible. But I hope that helps you at least understand your cause and effect, so you can take some less pressure on yourself. Let's see who is next. Next up, goodbye. Anybody got any questions in the comments? Just let me know. I'll get to them. All right. Was this the one I just did? Let me see. No, okay. It's a new one. All right, new one. Download. 1, 2. All right, here they are. 1 and 2. Let's hit play. Let's zoom in. Okay, just a quick reminder, if you do send me, please just send me normal speed, because it's a lot easier to use my mouse. It's a little frustrating with long speed. Okay, this is Ron. 4 years of golf under my belt. Congratulations. Welcome to golf. Took a 12-lesson beginner package with a well-rated local instructor, and I've taken one-offs with local pros here and there for specific issues. Have no particular problems with range of motion or body-based limitations. I have distinctive dispersion patterns that look a little bit like a crude drawing of a tree. My wedges hook as I move up to the P, and the hook relaxes, straighten out by the time I get to 8. The 8 begins to push. 6 is leaks. 5 is fades. Hybrid slice. Wow. All right, that's usually a path issue. What can I do to swing my... What I can see looking at my swing is that I bleed out all my lag before impact. And this is consistent across all clubs. All right, let's see. Looks like 2 different motions. It looks like the one on the left is trying some sort of lag drill, and the one on the right isn't quite doing that lag drill. 2 different shirts. I wonder if this is the same time, but we're going to assume they're the same as the one on the left, although my eye doesn't think it's the same. All right, let's take a look at that move. So we got a checkpoint going on there. You can see the hands, and The eyes are following the hands for that checkpoint. We're going to see that we get that checkpoint. Yes, we did. Now we go ahead and turn, and we got a pretty steep upper body. We come on down. We try to reroute. We try to, what is that word? Shallow. I don't like. We get the severe dipping going on, and then we release. Okay. So number one, impact here is a little bit too much tilting going on. So this is going to create some havoc here because we got a tilt out here. You see that center of the tilt is way over here. Golf ball is here. So our centeredness is at the golf ball, but look how much away our tilting is relative to where the hand should be. So if we can reduce that tilting, number one, you can kind of sequence a little bit better. So if our tilting can get to, there, we get that centeredness out to here, they match at that point. The hands would lead, and then they can go through naturally here. But they have to play catch up. So we see that tilting. The hands now are behind the tilting. So here, the club head is catching up to the tilt first. So we still see some hand manipulation. So, you don't want to try to exaggerate shallow or tilting. And I know that probably one of the reasons you're trying to do it is because your hands are so high at the top. There's nothing wrong with high hands. Let's see if you reroute it. Yeah, so there's a pretty big drop on the right side. But see here, your tilting doesn't look as severe as the one on the left, which is why I think this is two different, training sessions, because we don't see this exaggerated tilting, even past impact. Let's take a look here and see what the numbers are. So we have 49. Let's go to the top and see how much tilting we have here. Yeah, so here you've only got, 15, 18 degrees, which is, right around what you're looking for. But the one on the left, it looks like you're right there. I mean, it's just so much more. So I don't know. Let me know if you ever watched this, if you did two different practice sessions. But in terms of what I'm looking for here is, okay, we've got a setup. And how do we use that setup naturally? So let's take a look at where the paths are set, the planes, the centeredness. We got some flip-flops on, which is okay. So our centeredness of our body is a little bit ahead of the centeredness of our feet. So do we make adjustments for that at impact? Do we lose some spine angle? Yes, we do. So we lose the amount of spine angle and motion that our centeredness is trying to find. So if we take a look here, we've moved up into our feet. And as a result, we crash a little bit up, which will help you shallow naturally. But you can see the relationship between that and where we started. This is why I don't like slow motion. Is look at the difference. So we see the centeredness of your feet, and let's do a circle here. Can we zoom in? All right, so we see your centeredness of our feet. Let's do this in green. Centeredness of feet is, we have one center of our setup. Centeredness of our feet is here. So then this is where you start, or excuse me, that's where you go down towards impact. That's where you start. So you can see it's the same gapping. So you can see your body's trying to find the centeredness. So, you have to make these small adjustments because when you crash into it, you're shallowing naturally. Now, when you shallow naturally, one way to accommodate that is getting steeper on the way back to work with that. So you might have started golf shallowing and maybe you've been a better top position, but because you shallowed so much, you started hitting way behind the golf ball, you missed it pretty severely. So you'd learned to pick up the club to get it up there to accommodate that. So without, accommodating both now, it's going to be kind of an issue for you. So let's zoom out again and see what happens from the top. So we go to the top. Your first move is now to try and say, okay, I've got a steeper top swing, although I know I'm going to come out of my posture, which will help shallow it. But if you're trying to practice a move like the guy on the left and increase even more, now you've got some pretty big issues with where that shaft is going to fall down and counteract that face angle at impact. So we're going to draw a triangle check here and see what happens naturally. So we got one here. Okay, let's see how we reroute that. So here goes that reroute. So the reroute's good, reroute's good, reroute's good. Drop it into the slot. Club face is still slightly disconnected. You're stalling out. There's, the rotation stalls out here probably because you're moving into the golf ball to fight that centeredness setup. And then our hands have to kind of do the rest of the work. And we see those hands really have to be involved. and we stall out pretty significantly with the rotation. So as you strike this golf ball, we probably see a negative shoulder turn and probably a neutral to maybe 5 or 10 degrees with the hips. So it's not much torque going on here. Now, I don't know if that's a limitation issue. You said you don't have rotation issues. So I think a lot of this is sequencing. A lot of this is setup. A lot of this is maybe, I don't know if you're falling for a swing fat or a swing tempo, or presumably swing drill where you're trying to drop it in the slot to counteract that steepness, but you kind of need that steepness because you lose your posture anyway. So you might just be putting too many fires out and setting more fires while doing that as well. So you got a question here. He told me, should the center of the chest be in line with the ball with tilt at address or little ahead? Should the center of the chest be in line with the ball with tilt? So are you talking about, let me do this here. So let's go to here. So let's use this as an example. Are you talking about the tilting of the shoulders here and that's your spine angle? Are you talking about like the hands being aligned with that? I just want to make sure I get the question answered as best as I can and understand the question. So if you can let me know, that'd be great. But Ron, I hope that helps you. You know, I don't mean to burst anyone's bubble here. I just want to make sure you guys are looking at the right thing, understand cause and effect of your swing, what to look for. So for anybody watching, you really want to just look at your setup and how your body uses your setup. And the angles that your setup creates, they need to work unless you are able to compensate when they don't hit these certain points. And if they don't hit the certain points and you compensate correctly, great, don't do anything. If it doesn't look great, who cares? As long as you can repeat it and you create some consistent enough ball flight. We're not all hitting it straight. We all hit it crooked. The tour pros hit it crooked too. Now, if you go watch a tour pro event and just go on Friday and Saturday, just see how crooked some of these guys hit it. But they get out of trouble quicker. They're better putters. They're better short game artists. They have much better, game plans. They can hit things. They play to their percentages. They play smart golf, and that's what makes them still have their worst rounds be, mid 70s is worst rounds on tour level conditions. Not like we're up here in the 90s when we're having the worst round. Dan, just let me know if that's the right question you had, because I'm going to switch out players here. All right, Ron, what time is it? Okay, good. Let's get that out of here. And let's see who is next. Ron's out. All right, we got Mark coming up. Download. Let's delete this. Let's delete this. Okay. Whoa, there's a lot of videos here. I'm just going to randomly pick 2 of them. There's like 10 videos here. I don't know. Ain't got it. What is that? Ain't nobody got time for that? All right. We got an in shot and a video. Let's take a look at one of these, and hopefully they're the same or a different angle. Okay, we got an in shot, and nope, different. So let's take a look. Can we get another one? Another one here. If this one doesn't work, we're just going to have to go with what we got. Okay, there we go. Okay, we got 2 different angles, which is good. Let's zoom in while we get his notes up. Hit play and take a look at his notes. Okay, recently I began getting into the lead leg earlier and feels like I'm making almost a single plane swing. For a while I was doing a big gyrospheric loop, but I don't think that was helping me. My iron strike, distance, and overall ball flight have really improved. Ugh, shallower. Brushing the ground nice on practice swings instead of slamming it or missing it early. Still seem to be hitting a little bit behind the ball. Driver, I'm still hitting a huge push or slice. I like to hit a low draw. Misses with irons are a big pull or push. Excessively heavy ground contact and tend to hit more towards the toe of the club. All right. Let's take a look. I don't move exceptionally well, but I do think I have enough mobility to play well. I seem to do well with a somewhat inside takeaway and relatively short backswing. Open to your ideas. Have taken lessons. Can't seem to find an instructor that will stick with me. Man, you got some issues with the instructors out there. All right. Can we move him around? Yes, we can. Good. So we got driver. We got a bunch of swings here. There's like a short. We got to play a hole with him. That's a good looking swing on the right side. A little disconnection early. And yeah, club is laid off a little bit. That's okay. Let's see how he makes it work. That's pretty good. Well, it's behind. You can see the hands are behind there. But he gets out his own way. That's pretty good. I like it. Left side, let's take a look here. Ball position's too far back. We got that forward press, which is going to give you, it's going to create hell for you with the driver. Got to get those hands involved to get the club head to catch up. Okay, so this one's a pretty simple one to kind of diagnose here with the driver. It's all set up. So we take a look. There's shoulder tilt. There is buttons of the shirt. Bam. Look at how much forward press we've got. So you don't want forward press as a driver unless you've got the ability to fall back and carry that angle forward. So, carry that angle forward. You're going to have to lean this way, increase your tilting so much to carry that angle. So now you've got that angle working this way for you. So you get that forward press naturally. Now, a few people in the world can do this. A lot of long drive drivers can do this. They can get away with forward pressing and it's built into their swing. So it's okay. But I'm assuming we don't have that long drive capability. So we see the weight shift on the right side to try and get that ball position. Another thing too is let's draw the ball position here. So the ball position is connected maybe at the center of the chest. So this will be a decent iron setup, although that's still too much forward press, but a decent iron setup. Now we're trying to hit up on a driver, not trying to hit down. So we're gonna have to make some compensation. So we try to get our upper body over the right side, so his right side. So we feel like, okay, that ball position now is favoring more towards his left side, which makes sense. Now we come on down through. We need some weight distribution, right? Because we've loaded up on the right side. So we have to get some weight distribution back. We get that hip to bump first. So there's a weight distribution. So now that's going to bring our shoulder tilt to go down while he's pushing up. So now we got the rotation. First we got the lateral, then we got the rotation. Now we're trying to, get some vertical. So we get all three of these in a row. But the problem is look how far that ball position is relative to him. It's way back over here where it should be, out over here where that setup was. And that little difference makes a huge difference in your sequencing, in your hands just going along for the ride, and the rotation and the tilting, because he can't effectively tilt more, because if he tilts more like he should be, he's going to hit the ground way behind the golf ball. So he's learned to kind of stand up like you see him doing and, level out that tilting so he doesn't hit the ground. And all of a sudden the hands now have to throw to get that club head to try and add some loft. So we still get a pretty big forward press slightly before I hit the golf ball. But as we strike it, we see those hands are trying their best to get that club head to move this way to flatten everything out. So he gets there about a frame late. So you can see how this setup can create some issues. Now, the right side looks pretty good to me. I mean, he gets in that slot pretty nicely. There's a little disconnection. And I wonder if his iron swings, he has that kind of leaning up as we see with the driver. But here it looks really good in terms of look how steady that head is. The head is just moves down, rotates. Upper body is staying over the golf ball. It's not raising up. We see a great back brace line. So we don't see any loss here. This is actually a really, really solid swing here. We see a little bit of tightness there. So I don't think we're kind of rotating and getting up just naturally. I think we're trying to just hold on to things, hold on for dear life, which kind of gives you this, follow through where you look like you're just holding on. So, just get loose at the follow through. But in terms of your setup of the driver, I promise you start changing this driver setup, it might free you up a lot more. So if you don't want to change anything in terms of your tilting, in terms of like the way you move around the golf ball, keep everything the same, but just the hands the same too. So you're actually getting pretty close right off the bat. It's that forward press that's killing you. So we got the shoulder tilt. We're going to do you in Barney Purple. We got everything. So your hands are meeting that shoulder tilt perfectly. Just put the ball right there. So don't change anything. Just put the ball on a little tee and just swing. Now, obviously, your first couple of swings, you're still going to have the jumping up and kind of creating space because your hands are used to it. And your hands are still going to throw. So you might expect some pop-ups because your hands are going to release and go under, and all of a sudden, you are going to hit some pretty high shots because you're adding loft now as opposed to carrying over some neutral loft. So just expect that. But if you just stay diligent with it, and maybe don't do it right away. Don't just put that ball position out there and expect miracles. Maybe change it like half an inch, something like that every 3-4 days, just to slowly introduce it to you, and your body can slowly make those accommodations normally. But in terms of your driver, man, that's just it's sticking out like a sore thumb, because what you're doing here is you're essentially, you're looking at this. So you've got your two circles, right? You've got one circle here with your club. Which way is that circle moving into? It's preset moving down, and it's not an iron. We need to preset it so it's moving up. So if you take your setup and you move your club head ahead while it's still connected to your center point, now it's preset to swing up. Now you don't have to manipulate much because your spine angle is preset the same up. Your shaft is preset for the same up. Right now you got one going down and one going up. So somewhere along the lines, these two have to match, and you're doing it by standing up and throwing. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Also at home, hopefully that makes sense to you, because that's a big problem I do see. All right, I was speaking of the spine angle at address. Hopefully what I just said there makes a lot of sense. So you want to look, and look, I'm not saying this is like a guarantee, because sure, I've met guys that can hit great shots the way this gentleman set up. But you have to look at your misses. Like, how bad are your misses? And are the misses being caused by your setup? Or is it a rerouting in your swing? Now, if it's a rerouting in your swing, maybe that too is caused by your setup, and it's changing things in the initial foot of your golf swing. So you have to look at your setup. Now, what I look for, I immediately see somebody's setup, and I can see, okay, here are like 5 options that I think can occur. And I'm looking for those 5 things. And then if one of those options occur, I'm saying, okay, well, how good does this person time it? And it's hard to tell with one recorded swing, because it could have been timed great and I'm giving him misinformation. So this is why you have to really just, if this was a true lesson with me, I'm watching you hit 100 drivers without saying a word. And I'm looking and I'm recording probably 50 of them. And I'm looking at, do we have the same, idiosyncrasies in your golf swing? Does that compensation affect your shaft at impact? Remember, it's low point, club face, and club path. But for a certain degree, it's also angle of attack. You don't want to be too steep, but you get my point. So when you're looking at your swing, look at your setup, and I'm going to give you an idea. So if I was starting a person brand new, obviously I'm going to look at their natural moves to begin with. But let's say I can start everybody brand new. I think I would have more success in the long term if I started everybody with, let's say, this driver setup where everybody is connecting to the center of your hub, keeping that hands connected to the center of your hub and the club face connected to the center of the hub, because now you only have to worry about this body using itself in one move. If you start forward pressing, that's where issues become. Now with irons, you want a slight forward press because your center point needs to be slightly ahead of the golf ball at impact. Center point with the driver, you want to be slightly behind the golf ball at impact. You don't want to have the center ahead of the golf ball. Now you've got some issues. So you have to understand the tool. You have to understand why it's on a tee. You have to understand, how the ball gets up in the air, what spin axis is all about. How do we manipulate the spin axis around setup? But I would bet if I had a million brand new golfers and I either have them all forward press or all set up neutrally, like I just showed you, in the long term, I'd probably have a higher success rate with people that set up neutrally, because it doesn't require grip manipulation. It doesn't require, getting that club head to meet that spine angle at impact. It requires less of it. And when you have a desk job, when you have a family, you don't have time to go to the range to make the other one work, because that's a very high maintenance swing. You want to have a swing that's lower maintenance so you don't have to go out there and hit tons of golf balls. I know a guy who hardly plays golf, but he can shoot mid-70s, just dusts off the clubs, blows off the dirt, and just goes play, shoots mid-70s. He's got a very simple swing, like Steve Stricker-ish. It's just very simple. It doesn't hit very far, but, he doesn't need practice. But then I got other guys that can hit the ball great and, shoot under par a lot of the times, but their swing requires almost like a full-time job to maintain it. The moment they take a couple weeks off or get sick, it takes them 2 weeks to come back. So I hope all that makes sense to you. Hit my driver too much like iron. Spot on. Yep. Mark, is this you? Yeah, perfect. I got you, Mark. Glad you can join me. So hopefully that makes sense to you, man. I don't mean to like burst bubbles or anything, but I just call it like I see it. Hopefully you know that by now. But let me know if you need any extra help later on after you have done that changes for the driver at least. So let me keep me updated. All right, I think we have time for. Oh, we got time for a quick one more, and we've gone through a decent amount today, which is good. All right, another mark. Let's see. 2 marks back to back. What are the odds? All right, let's take a look. Got 1 and 2. Slowly downloading. By the way, mark number 1, great video footage. A lot easier for me to help you guys out. Mark number 2. All right. Let's get his PDF up. Let's look at his swing. I'll read it. Let's zoom in so you guys don't need your magnifying glasses out here. Okay, playing off and on for 20 to 30 years. Never had a lesson. No mobility issues or injuries. Ball flight is straight. When hit well with misses both ways with the odd top. Just joined as a member. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And would like to get as good as I can. 43 years old. Okay. Okay, ball flight is straight when I hit it. Misses both ways. Okay, so we got some path. And let's see, do we have a routine path? All right, well, the path looks pretty decent. Yeah, a little low, but that's okay. And you make it work. That's a pretty decent move we got there. I don't mean to sound so shocked, but oh yes, look at that setup. Great job on the right side. Okay, not a lot of motion, which is good, just turning. Okay, we're covering the golf ball a little too much with the driver. Yeah, okay. So it looks like you're just crashing a little bit with the driver. I like the setup in terms of the relationship between the club head and the center. I think it's just a little bit too upright, which causes you to crash into the golf ball at impact. And what I'm looking at here is basically this and this. Good job. However, you can see it's not tilted as much as you would like it to occur. The ball position is decent. I think if you want to get a little bit more easier, specifically with your natural, fairly flat swing, you want to promote the flat swing. So you want to try and get a little bit more lean back, which is something I would recommend. So your spine may be back over here. So we get a little bit more shoulder tilt, which can help you because as you get more shoulder tilt, the left shoulder does work higher in terms of that tilt turn relationship. It's a little different with the driver. Driver, when you're set up with the bend forward, we're always going to have a slight bit of left shoulder raise just because we're accentuating more tilt this way, and that changes your left shoulder. With an iron, when we don't have as much tilt, now we can look to see how do we maintain that, and it should be fairly close to perpendicular. So I'd say for this one, maybe you're standing just a little bit too far away, but let's take a look because that's a little bit too much shoulder bend, and this is that angle down here for a driver. But we'll take a look. And let's do another one here just to see that back brace line. And a couple more here. All right. Yeah, you make it work. I'll tell you what, you make it work. There's some good things going on here. Now, I don't know if your misses. Let me see. It says ball flight is straight when hit. Both misses. I don't know if you talk about driver or everything. Since you just sent me a driver swing, I'm assuming you're talking about driver and not everything else. I'd really look at the way you set up on the starting point. I mean, I love the fact that you do set up with things more neutralized. You can see your grip is fairly neutral here. Maybe it's a tad bit weak. It's hard to see with that. You got to really zoom in. It's hard to tell where the thumbs end. And how much closer can we get? Yeah, it looks neutral-ish to kind of weak. which is okay. Nothing wrong with that. You can see on the left side of the swing, you can see you do have a bowing action, which does favor the neutral grips. So there's that slight bow. So you're pretty good in terms of how that grip is working around your bowing action. You can see the club face is slightly closed, which is fine. You want to try and carry a little bit of that slightly closed down to your target, but in order to carry that, you need to accentuate some tilting and also rotation to help you, so you don't have a club face that's closed at impact. Now, if you have a club face that's closed at impact and your paths are all over the place, which I don't know if your paths will be all over the place, but if they don't square up in time with a consistent into out path, then you can have possible two-way misses. And I don't know if you guys saw that Analyze the Analyzer when I did it on Easy Golf or Swing Easy, where that gentleman who was a pretty good golfer went through the system and the guy put a tchotchke in his hand. All of a sudden, it just started hitting it supposedly better. But you take a look at his numbers, he was always significantly 2 to 3 degrees inside to out every single swing. So that tchotchke didn't solve that part of it. It solved his hands releasing. So, you are in the same boat. If I assume that that's your natural plane, you are going to have a right path most of the time. And then all of a sudden, club face rotation at impact is going to be more dependent on. And the way you set up, you really need to try and get more tilting to allow your setup that you do now, which is a little bit further away, a little bowed left wrist because of the weaker grip. That's fine, but you need to really engage tilting and turning. So part of the one ways you can work with this is just get a little bit more tilt and turn from the setup from this face on. Okay, so this will require, where do we get that? Is that the practice swing? Okay. So this will just require a little bit of changes here. So ball position, if you want to keep the ball position there, that's okay. So there's ball position. Just get a little bit more tilting, which will require you to kind of lean more back. So your centeredness won't feel, I would imagine, look how far forward your centeredness is. I would imagine your weighting feels more dominant on that left foot. You want to shift that centeredness of your body to kind of where the spine angle should be based on that. So you want that centeredness to be here. So your spine angle should be back. In other words, move your whole upper body back to match that. And then your club will be sitting a little bit more angled, which will help you swing more up on it, specifically with your shallower natural motion. You'll really take advantage of some spin, reduction of spin, and also use your path effectively. So I think those couple of changes just face on could definitely send you in the right direction. From there, you just have to, if your weighting's going to be feeling like it's 65, 70% on your right foot now, just keep it there. There's no reason to slide back and forward. Just stay 65 and just get that natural into out motion. Stay 65 at impact, and then let the weighting carry you through to your left side. You don't want to start leaning into the golf ball because that'll create some steepness issues. So hope that helps you. Let me see if I missed anything over here. I was speaking spine angle. Okay, I got that one. Thanks, Tony. Makes more sense now. Appreciate you. Got it, Dan. No problem. Yes, that was me. Thank you. No problem, Mark. All right. So quick stream going up. I know there's not a lot of people. I appreciate the guys that were here that support the channel. I'm glad that we're creating a nice community here, help each other out. And other than that, I will see you. I got a video coming out next couple of days. One tomorrow. Might take the weekend off. I've been grinding at it pretty hard. I've been feeling kind of sick, so might take the weekend off. But I'll definitely try and get one more live stream up before the weekend, and then get back to multiple live streams a week. But other than that, thanks so much for the support, everybody. I appreciate it.